Hello, everyone, and welcome to our week one session of DES460, which is the advanced Photoshop class. I'm so excited. I saw many familiar names in our grade book, and I'm really excited to see the amazing work that you all are going to do. I just want to remind you all, you guys have done this before. You guys have definitely been in many multi-sessions before. So you guys know, please don't share your video or share your screen or share your video just yet, because when more than one person does it, it does slow down the meeting time. So thank you for paying attention to that. And then for those of you who haven't had me as a teacher before, hi, my name is Carly Heath, and I teach many of the Photoshop classes here at Independence University. I've been teaching for many, many years, and I am always excited to see the new crop of students, and I'm especially excited to teach this class, which is the Advanced Photoshop class, because you guys have been through DES104, the beginning Photoshop class. You guys have been through intermediate Photoshop, DES323. And so you're no longer scared of the Photoshop interface. You're no longer freaked out by all the tools. You know how to mask things, and you know how to use adjustment layers and blending modes and use the paintbrush. So you have a solid foundation. Now, that's not to say that you know everything, because Photoshop is a skill, just like playing the piano or learning martial arts or doing any other skill that takes a lot of time to learn. Think DES 104 and DES 323. Those are each 4 weeks. So you guys have about 8 weeks of training in Photoshop. And let's face it, you can't master any skill in 8 weeks. So hopefully you have been doing additional practice on your own time outside of class. And this additional 4 weeks will give you 12 solid weeks of Photoshop under your belt. But like I said, you're not going to be a master pianist with 12 weeks of piano lessons, just like you're not going to be a master black belt in karate after only 12 weeks of karate classes. So there's still much to learn when it comes to Photoshop, but we can certainly give you the basics, and we can certainly show you the most commonly used tools. But the fact is, at the end of this course, there's still going to be plenty of tools that we haven't yet covered. And I definitely want to encourage you guys, since you're getting so close to graduation, to definitely take advantage of me. If there's something you want to learn that you feel you haven't learned, reach out to me. Tell me here in this class session what you want to know how to do, because chances are I know how to do it. And definitely take advantage of all the free learning resources on lynda.com and also YouTube. So that said, gosh, give yourselves a pat on the back, because you are almost close to graduating. And I know some of you are already out there freelancing and, earning a little side income using your graphic design skills. And I hope that, maybe this mod, if you haven't yet started doing some freelancing and earning a little side income with your graphic design skills, maybe you might start doing that today, or this week, or this mod. We have some really fun assignments, I should say, that we're going to be doing. We're going to be learning how to put textures on things, and we're going to be learning how to make, as you composite, make things look three-dimensional using lighting and using displacement maps. And we're going to be also moving into some more advanced tools in Photoshop. So I just want to remind you, with this complicated stuff with Photoshop, just like I said in DES 104 and DES 323, if you're sitting back and you're watching this class session like a TV show, and you're not taking notes, and you're thinking, oh, I'll just watch it again when I actually do the assignment, that's not the best way to learn. Studies have shown that when you actually physically handwrite notes with a pen or a pencil and write down notes on a piece of paper and then refer to those notes as you're doing the assignment, the information will go in your brain and stay there longer than if you type up your notes or if you don't, take notes at all. So please do, if you don't have a piece of paper handy right now, go get a piece of paper, get a pen or a pencil, and start writing down notes. And don't just write down the shortcut keys. Write down the steps. Write down step one. Write down the number 1 and then circle and write down what you're supposed to do. Now that said, if you end this session with 5 or 7 or 10 pages of notes, that is as bad as not taking notes at all. Okay, you don't want to transcribe what I'm saying. You don't want to write down every single thing that I'm saying. You should come out of this class today with a page of notes. But if you have 5 pages of notes, you're taking too many notes, okay? You should be writing the shortcut keys, writing the steps in bullet points as I go through. Don't write complete sentences. And just write down the things that are relevant to the tasks that you have to do, okay? Don't make things overly complicated, okay? So plan on finishing this class with a page of notes. Let me think of something else that we have to talk about before I dive into your assignments. Oh, a reminder, you guys know this already. Every week, our assignments are due on Saturday at midnight Mountain Time. And I would strongly encourage you guys to get your assignments turned in before Saturday. Actually, plan on getting them turned in on Wednesday. Plan on getting them turned in Thursday, because there's always something bound to happen if you get started on that assignment on Friday or Saturday. Whether it's a technical difficulty, whether it's you becoming confused about what's required for the assignment. And the fact is, your teachers and other faculty members are not around on Friday and Saturday. So, getting your work done on Wednesday or Thursday is ideal, because if you get stuck with something, we are here and we can help you, okay? The other thing is, though, I know that sometimes life happens and situations happen. And as long as you email me before midnight Saturday Mountain Time and let me know that something came up, your assignment's going to be late, I will be more than happy to grant you an extension. But if you don't let me know that something is going on in your life, and come Monday when I start doing the grades, I look in the grade book and I see you didn't submit your assignment, and I didn't get any email or text message from you, I am going to be, let's say, less inclined to give you an extension on your work, okay? So let me know before midnight Mountain Time Saturday if you're gonna need a little extra time on an assignment. Remember that week 4 is a hard deadline and there's nothing I can do. So all of your work needs to be in by Saturday, midnight Mountain Time, week 4, because you will get kicked out of the classroom. You will no longer have the ability to submit your work. And that means 120 points for the final assignment, down the drain, 185 points for the final week, down the drain. And that's the difference between an A and a C, or a B or C and a not passing grade. So that really, really important that we get in the habit of turning our assignments in on time, letting me know if there's any reason why an assignment might be late. And then finally, we have multi-sessions. sorry, actually not multi-sessions. We have a second session. That's what it's called. We have a second live session for this class because that's how it works. In these upper level classes, we have 2 sessions per week. So, you know, here in our Monday session, this is Tuesday actually, in our Tuesday section, I'm going to be demonstrating step by step how to do the assignment. Then come to our Wednesday session with the assignment partially done, or with any questions that you have about the assignment, or if you need one-on-one help. Basically, please come to the Wednesday session prepared to show me something, so I can give you a hand on your assignment. I can tell you, yes, you're going to get an A on that assignment, or no, your assignment needs a little bit more work before it's ready to get an A. Make use of the second session, because something that's really not fun in these upper level classes is when I show up to the second session, which I have to record 2 hours of, and no one's here, no one has any work to show, and so I'll do like a little demo, and then I have so much time to kill because no one's here and no one's asking questions and no one needs help. So basically come prepared to show and interact with me on Wednesday. I'd really appreciate that. Let's move ahead into our lecture today. So this week in DES460, we are going to talk about our different techniques for utilizing the special effects features in Photoshop for your discussion board post this week. You're going to be posting an example of an advertisement or a design that has been made using Photoshop, and then you're going to guess, you're going to give it your best guess as to how that image was made and what Photoshop tools were used to create it. Then we're going to talk about 2 different techniques for applying lighting textures using our distortion map and our 3D tools. We're going to talk about using our texture mapping process to apply lighting, our pattern to our photo subjects. And then we're going to identify 3 advanced masking techniques to create professional composites. So these are the topics that we're going to cover this week. Before I jump into them, I just want to remind you all, I know I stress this so much in DES 104 and DES 323, but it is really, really important. You want to make sure that you back up your native file format. That is that .psd file. And so what does backing something up mean? Backing up doesn't just mean moving your files to another external hard drive. Backing your stuff up means saving an exact copy of your file in 2 or more locations, ideally 3 locations. So when you are backing up, you shouldn't just be clicking and dragging and moving a file. You should be making a copy of that file and then taking that copy and putting it on an external hard drive, or putting it on Google Drive, or putting it on, emailing it to yourself even. Putting it in a thumb drive that you're going to save it your safe deposit box at the bank. Because you guys are going to be graduating soon, so it's really, really important, not just for this class, but any classes that you've taken prior to this class, that you have that native file format with all of your layers, whether it's an AI project or a PSD project. You take all of those files and you have them in a second location that's safe. Because it's not a matter of when this is going to happen. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. there's going to be a day where your laptop doesn't turn on. And it's usually the day where you needed that stuff the most, okay? Every single Mac computer I've ever owned, there has been a point in its life where I was working on it really good and, you know, everything was going great. And then I shut it down and I went to turn it back on, and for some reason it just didn't turn on. And that's going to happen to your laptop. There's going to be a day where it just doesn't turn on. And if your laptop is the only place where your files have been saved, you're going to be really, really sad, because your files are now inside of a brick that you can never be able to access again. So have those files copied and saved onto an external hard drive, or Google Drive, or Cloud Drive, or emailed to yourself, so that when your computer doesn't turn on, you'll be able to access those files in some other way. And you're going to need those files because your capstone class is coming up. And your capstone class is where you're going to put together your portfolio. And that portfolio is what you're going to use to send out to get jobs. So good strategy for success in this class. Lily, the capstone doesn't use your native files, but you are going to be required in your capstone class to make changes to your files to make them better, to make your projects better. And if you don't have the native files, you'll have to basically remake all of your projects and start them from scratch. Yeah, and so if you lost your hard drive 7 weeks ago, Bill, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're out of luck. So you know, in the next few weeks before your capstone class, you know, start either redoing your projects or you know, making new projects that you can use for your portfolio. So in this class, a good strategy for success is to attend or watch the weekly class lectures, take notes on paper with a pen or a pencil, following along the steps that I utilize in completing these projects. Contact me immediately if you have any questions or if you get stuck with anything, and definitely come to our second class session, which is tomorrow. And then be sure to turn in your weekly work well before Saturday at midnight, or contact me before the Saturday at midnight, my midnight deadline, letting me know that something has happened. Don't wait until Monday to let me know that your work is late. And then if you ever come across any issues with your Photoshop installation or your Photoshop account, email seanchildersgray@independence.edu. That's a really, really important email address to make friends with, because he will help you. So our week 1 discussion, you are going to find a project. You're going to definitely talk about what special effects are used in that advertisement or that image that you found. And then talk about whether, you know, the use of those special effects and that imagery is effective in promoting the product or brand, or ineffective. And talk about, you know, how far is too far? Is it always good to push it and make things really exaggerated and really enhanced with these special effects? Or is it simply decoration? What are some questions that you might consider when determining if a special effect is appropriate for an image? What point does the message get lost? etc. So some things that you can do is start looking for campaigns and advertisements that utilize special, Photoshop enhancements in their designs. And a website that's really good to go to is www.thedesigninspiration.com. And the design inspiration, especially if you scroll all the way down to creative photography, you can find a number of really, really exciting, interesting Photoshop work, right? And then let's say you decided to talk about this image for your discussion board post. How do we put that into our discussion forum? Hopefully you guys know this by now, but I just want to make sure I have a chance to go over it with everyone. So I'm going to hold down the control button and I'm going to click onto the image, and I can either just click copy image, go to my week 1 discussion, go here and start typing. And then Command V to paste. And then hit post reply. And so in these discussions, you're talking about a lot of different things. And I see already you guys have done you found some really, really good images, and you've done some really good discussions. So another way to bring a photo into the discussion, yes, and you're welcome to use the images provided in your discussion as well. So another way to use that image in your discussion is by holding down the control button and clicking on the image and then clicking copy image address. And then when you go in and type your discussion, you can click on this little embed image icon, which looks like a little frame with mountains. And then you can click on the URL space and then hit Command V and then update. And that's how you paste the image using the image URL. Some other places that you can go for images to discuss in your discussion board post is the Pinterest. And so you can do a search for graphic design. And you might see some interesting designs that you might want to talk about in your discussion, right? Pinterest is great because Pinterest, you can also, make your own boards and use it as a place to get graphic design inspirations for your own projects. And you can also do a search for specific brands or specific companies that you might want to look at. So for instance, let's do Hermès advertisement. And so just here's an example of, finding different places to go for graphic design inspiration. Alrighty, so we're ready to move ahead into talking about the assignment, which is going to be really fun, where you guys are going to learn how to do a displacement map. Yeah, Pinterest is great. I use Pinterest all the time. Every time I start a new project, I always make a board for that project and pin a bunch of inspirational pieces onto that board, and constantly looking at it as I'm designing. Okay, and you guys are all familiar with how our discussion boards are graded, right? You're making your first post by Wednesday night. You're making sure that you're using APA format on your citation. Make sure that you are engaging with the topic by posting an image into your discussion and embedding that image. You know, making sure that your primary post is substantial, meets the word count requirement, and then also make sure that you post 2 responses to your fellow classmates. And then there's 4 points for source quality and then 2 points for APA format. Yay, okay, so now we're ready to move on to our discussion or our assignment because we finished our discussion. Okay, so this is kind of an example of what the final assignment will look like. You can see that we've taken these images and you get to create whatever image you want, and you're putting it on a brick wall, and you're using the displacement map to not only distort the image so it looks like it's wrapping around the bricks and sinking into the crevices of the rock, but you're also using that map to create shading so it looks 3-dimensional. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my whole screen. And we'll scroll down, and I am going to, let's use this brick wall. So the best way to download this is just to click on the brick wall. And it went to my downloads folder. And then you are welcome to create your own design. You'll get more points for creativity if you create your own design. Or you can use the design that's provided. And download those. Now we're going to venture over into Photoshop. Alvin, I will get to the Refine Edge in Photoshop CC 2017 because I actually don't think it is there anymore in 2017. So what we'll do, Alvin, is after I'm done doing this demonstration, I'll have you share your screen and I'll show you the workaround for the Refine Edge in your version of Photoshop. Oh, and I believe something else I need to look at before I begin is the size, because I believe this wants your document to be 7 inches by 10 inches. Okay. So I'm going to go, and 72 dpi? Yep, 72 dpi. So File, New, 7, 10, 72 dpi. Okay, now we're going to bring that brick wall in. So if you're writing down notes, you would write 1 for step 1, and then you'd write new document, 7 inches, 10 inches, 72 dpi. And now step 2 is going to be File, Place Embedded, File, Place Embedded. And then we're gonna browse to our documents, our downloads folder. And I'm gonna go to that brick.jpg. Now I need this brick to fill up my whole document. So I'm gonna hold down the shift button. And I am going to click and drag from the corner while holding down the shift button so that I maintain my height to width proportions. So watch, I'm holding down the shift button and I'm clicking on the corner with my trackpad and I'm dragging at a diagonal angle. Now I'm letting go of my clicker and I'm letting go of my shift button. Now let's check the sizes at the top of the screen. The width is 88.64% and the height is also 88.64%. You need the width and the height to always stay the same. If you have squished things like this as you're resizing, you've distorted the image and now it doesn't look right anymore. So that's why it's really important whenever you're resizing, you hold down the shift button and you click and drag from the corner, not the edge. And I have to go up here to the width and the height, and I have to make sure that my width and the height are still exactly 88.64. Alrighty, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this layer. And I'm going to create a black and white version of this project, slightly blurry, and it's going to be my displacement map. Okay, so follow along with these steps, guys. Be sure to write these down in your notes. So you're going to hit Command J to make a duplicate of our brick large layer. Right, that is an important shortcut key. Command J duplicates a layer. Command J. Everyone got that? Now I'm going to go up to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. Oh no! Why is Desaturate grayed out? Because we haven't rasterized this layer yet. Okay, so we need to rasterize this layer first. And then to rasterize it, we're going to go to Layer, Rasterize, Layer. Okay, now that it's rasterized, I can go to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. Anyone want me to do that again? I'll be happy to do that whole process again, okay? Let's do it one more time. So step one, I have my brick wall placed and resized into my document. Now I'm going to hit Command J to duplicate, and that will be Control J if you're on a PC. Now I'm going to go up to Layer, Rasterize, Layer, Layer, Rasterize, Layer. Now I'm going to go to Image, Image Adjustments, Desaturate, and now it's black and white. Now I am going to blur this layer. So to blur this layer, I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I need to make it, I want to still see the shadows and the lines. but I don't want them to be too detailed. Okay, there we go. There's our Gaussian blur. And if you don't desaturate your, it won't work. Your displacement map just won't work. Now, something else you can do is you can increase the contrast of this layer by hitting Command L or Control L if you're on a PC. And you can move these little sliders closer together. So something else you can try if you want. Okay, now I'm going to save this as a .psd file. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call this displacement map.psd. And I'm going to hit Save. Okay, and so that's going to be for future use. I'm going to turn off that brick layer for now, and I'm going to rename this project now. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I'm going to rename this project DES460_Week1_ your name. Yeah, Marla, because this project that we're doing is completely different from the videos on Adobe. This project is actually a project that I made. This is not a project that Adobe made. So if Adobe has like a lesson on displacement map, it's going to be completely different from my lesson. Okay, so now I've renamed this project DES460Week1 your name.psd. So I have one file that is called displacement map, and that is the black and white blurry background one. And then I have one file that is named DES460 Week1 your name, and that's what I'm going to continue to work on. So now I'm going to go to File. Let's actually use something, I'll make my own design first. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I am going to find something nice and somewhat bright. I'll use maybe a custom shape tool. This is a custom shape that I made that I kind of like and I'm kind of proud of. Where is it? This one. So I'm going to use this custom shape that I made for my displacement map project. See, it's just a little like flower design. Kind of nice. And I think something that will make it look nicer is if it had just a little bit of an outline around it. So I'm going to double click on shape 1 and I'll throw a little stroke on it. Reduce the size. There we go. So that's my little design, and what I need to do is I need to make the stroke and the shape all part of one layer. So I'm going to make a new layer first, and then I'm going to hold down the shift button and select the new layer as well as shape 1, and then I'm going to hit Command E. So now this is a merged rasterized layer. It's basically like a picture. And now I can start manipulating this using the displacement map. Okay, so remember, for this part, you are welcome to make whatever design you want. You can take an illustration that you made and you can bring it into Photoshop. You can take a photo that you took and you can bring it into Photoshop. You can take some other design that you made and bring it into Photoshop. And now what we're going to do is make it look like it's actually been sprayed onto this wall, and instead of being separate from this wall, it's going to be like embedded with the wall. And we're going to use our displacement map to do this. So first thing we have to do is select now our art layer. I'm going to call layer 1 our art layer. And yes, the design needs to be rasterized. So that's why when I put a stroke on it, I put that little outline on it, I then made a new blank layer and I merged this shape layer with the blank layer so then it rasterized it. Now I'm going to go to Filter, Distort, and Displace. Filter, Distort, Displace. Now you can decide how much scale you want in your displacement. And try this several times so that you can see how these numbers affect the look of your design. I'm just gonna, for kicks, throw in 20, 20. And now I'm going to click OK. And this part here, this is where I'm going to go to the displacement map that I made. And see how it has to be black and white in order for it to work. Now I'm going to click Open. And see how 20 was really, really extreme. It really distorted it a lot, right? So let's do a distortion that's a little bit less than that, okay? So I'm going to Command Z to undo, and now I'm going to go to Filter, Distort, Displace, and instead of doing 20, I'll do 10. And now I'm going to click OK. Browse to my displacement map that I made. Okay, this also might be a little bit too much. It's heavily distorted, but we can, we can drop it down to 5 if we want. But let's just see how this looks. So what I'm going to do now is make this look like it's on the brick by using a blending mode. And one blending mode that might be really good for this is hard light. See, now hard light makes it look like it's on the wall. But hard light, the thing about hard light is white still stays really, really white. So I'm gonna lower the opacity just a little bit because sometimes that helps. And then something else you can try is if hard light doesn't do it for you, you can also try color. You can also try color burn. You can try color dodge. And the thing is, which one you end up deciding to use is going to depend a lot on the colors that are in your design and what you want the final thing to look like. Right, disappears. Linear burn is kind of nice actually, but it loses my white background. So I kind of like vivid light a little bit, kind of like hard light, kind of like overlay a little bit, right? Kind of like overlay a whole lot actually. Now we want the shading to show through. And that's why I didn't just delete this layer that had the displacement map on it. I kept it because I can use this to create shading on my document. And there's a couple of different ways that we can use this layer. So once I turn it on, I can put this layer on soft light. And what soft light does is it puts those shadows in. So let's go before, after. So it puts those shadows in. So it makes the shadows really defined. And it also puts the highlights in. Which is kind of nice. Okay, I'm not thrilled with how distorted I made my image. I feel like it just kind of, in some places, like really got skewed. It really looks like it's wrapping around the bricks, which is nice. But maybe I don't want it to go quite so distorted, especially up here. It looks a little bit weird. So I'm going to do this one more time. This time, I think I will use less of a distortion on my displacement map. And then again, to put the stroke on it, I'm gonna double click on this layer. And I'll just click on stroke, add a little stroke. And now to rasterize it really quick, I'm just gonna make a new layer, hold down the shift button, select both those layers, and then hit the shortcut key to merge two layers together, which is Command E, Command E. Now, what I'm gonna do is apply the displacement map by going up to Filter, Distort, Displace. And let's try 5. I'm going to browse to my displacement map. So now it just subtly distorted it. And now I'm going to go to hard light. And then I'll throw this on. So what I'm not liking about hard light is that instead of the shadows looking very dark and like black, the shadows that are showing through the artwork are looking kind of vivid green. So that's why I think I like overlay a little bit better. It looks a little bit more realistic, like graffiti. But the problem with overlay is that it's not quite popping as much. So you can always use a little bit of both. Like you can duplicate the layer that has the overlay blending mode on it by hitting Command J. And then you can either just reduce the opacity of the top layer. So before, after, so now it's popping a little bit more, but it still has the shadows. Or you can put the duplicated layer on hard light and have it pop a little bit more, and maybe, you know, change the order around a little bit. But the thing is, this is totally up to you guys. You know, you want it to look realistic, but you get to pick what is the effect that you're going for. You know, how much of the shadows do you want it to show through? How much do you want it to feel like it's actually like part of the environment, where it's like the bricks themselves have been painted, and how much do you want it to look maybe slightly separate from the environment? So this is the duplicated displacement map that's been blurred a little bit. And, you know, remember I adjusted the levels, so it's a little bit higher contrast. And when I put that duplicated displacement map on soft light, it helps to kind of add the contrast, and it makes those highlights pop, and it makes those shadows nice and dark. So then how would you do it like spray paint? Dissolve is a really good kind of spray paint style blending mode. And so if you remember dissolve, when you select dissolve, it doesn't look like anything at first. But when you lower the opacity, it starts to look a little bit more like speckled. So then the question there is, well, how do I get that splattery, speckly look, but also get it to kind of look like it's embedded in the brick wall? And so something that you can do is make a new layer after you've selected the dissolve and after you've lowered the opacity of the dissolve. You can then make a new layer, merge these two, the blank layer and the dissolve layer together by hitting Command E. So now this is a splattery, speckly version of your design. And then you can put this on, you know, hard light or overlay. And so it has that splattered look, but it's also still embedded in the rock. And then, I mean, that's kind of like a poor man's way of doing graffiti. Because the problem is when you're getting a computer to create like a spray paint effect, it's gonna look kind of fake. That's what dissolve kind of looks. Dissolve is great for like animated GIFs if you're making text that you want to sparkle and you want to animate that dissolve blending mode. But when you're trying to make something look like spray paint, a better way to go about it would be to, you know, make a selection, you know, or draw something and then make a selection of that area. So in this case, I'll make a path, and then I'll use the path to make a selection. And then you can get your paintbrush out and put your paintbrush on like a soft edge brush, or you can even download one of those spray paint graffiti brushes that people make. You can do a search for free Photoshop brushes, graffiti, and then you can kind of spray it like this. I'll do a little dark in the middle, and then a little bit light in the use a harder brush. Okay, so I've used my soft edge brush too. To make kind of like a spray painty looking kind of design. And then, you know, same thing, I'm going to go to filter, displace. It's going to apply the same thing that I did last time. And then I'm going to go hard light. And I think I think if I'd gotten like a really good spray paint type brush, I could even use the pastel on charcoal paper brush or one of these air brushes here. You can kind of play with some graffiti type effects that way. I'm gonna go back to, which one do I like? Go back to this one. And now let's see how we're supposed to save this. So you always want to save your layered Photoshop file. You know, you should be making a folder on your desktop called DES460, and all of your schoolwork files should go there. And then we're going to turn in, though, a JPEG. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, and we're going to make a folder on our desktop called DES460 Schoolwork. And now I'm going to name this DES460Week1 yourname.pst, save. And that PSD file is not what we're going to be turning in. What we're going to be turning in is our JPEG. So we're going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. Save. And that JPEG is what we turn in. Yay. Any other questions? So the main kind of overview and lesson of that is you have to make a black and white version of your texture first. And you have to then, you know, put your design in, and then you use that black and white texture that you made as the displacement map. Well, yeah. And the thing is, get started on it tonight. You know, don't spend more than 5 minutes on it, but get started on it tonight, and then come to our class session tomorrow and show me your work. And I'll be happy to help you troubleshoot. You know, if you end up making your design like with lots of black or white in it, you're going to have some trouble with certain blending modes, like color blending mode is going to be kind of difficult for you. So we can work on figuring out which blending modes together will be best for your project. And now our assessment this week is really fun. You're going to select someone's face, and then you're going to select a flag, and you're going to put a flag on someone's face, and you're going to use masking, and you're going to use shading and the displacement map to make it look like that flag is wrapping around their facial features. So to download the pictures of the face, all you have to do is click on the thumbnail. Don't right click or you'll be saving the thumbnail. Click on the thumbnail so it opens up like nice and big like this. And then we're gonna venture over here. And we're gonna download this large vector file. Did it download? There it is. Okay. Now this vector file is a .eps, and we remember from DES 104 that the EPS file that we had to use, you know, doesn't open up in Photoshop. And so what we have to do is we have to open this up in Illustrator first, and then we can copy it and paste it into Photoshop. So I'm going to open up my face first by going to File, Open, and browsing to the downloads. So there we go. And now I'm going to open up the EPS file in Illustrator by going to Control-Click, Open with Adobe Illustrator. Alrighty. So I'm going to choose flag that is kind of hard. I think this is Jamaica. So Jamaica is a little bit hard because there's like black on it, and black is a hard color to get to blend using simple blending mode. So that will be a good challenge for us. And this one over here, black and white. I'll start with this one. And what we do is see if we can select the whole object by holding down the Shift button and selecting the whole object. And now what we're going to do is Control-Click or Control-C or Command-C. Or we can go up to Edit, Copy. Now we can paste this directly into Photoshop as a vector object by going to Command-V. A dialog box will pop up whenever you're trying to copy and paste things between Illustrator and Photoshop, and it wants to know if you want to bring this in as a smart object, pixels, path, or shape layer. And see, if you brought it in as pixels, then you wouldn't be able to resize it. If you brought it in as a path, it'd be great for a selection, but it wouldn't be really useful for us. And I've tried to bring things in as a shape layer before, and it just comes in as only one color. It basically will come in as a rectangle, black rectangle. So we're going to use Smart Object. And now it looks really small, and you might be wondering, oh no, but I was told if we bring in something small and then we stretch it to make it bigger, that's bad. Don't worry, this is a Smart Object. So this means that it's a vector object and we can resize it. So I'm going to hold down the Shift button, and I'm going to click on the corner, click and drag, hold down the Shift button, click on the corner, click and drag. Let's make it completely fill out her face. And now let's go up to the top of the screen and let's make sure that the width and the height are exactly the same. Good, and then when it's resized exactly as we want it, we'll hit Enter or Return. Okay, so we have our flag. We have our face, but one thing we haven't done is we haven't made a displacement map yet. Okay, so I'm going to temporarily hide this flag layer for now. And I'm going to duplicate the background layer by hitting Command-J. And now we're going to blur this background layer by going up to, oh, and also desaturate it. So we're going to go up to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. And now we're going to go to Image, Adjustments. We can also do Levels. And you can also hit Command-L to bring up levels. And I'm just going to increase the contrast just a little bit, because more contrast will make more extreme exaggeration in your displacement map. And now I'm going to blur this a little bit by going up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we want to blur it so that the shadows are very apparent, but the details are not there. Now I'm going to click OK. So now we're going to save this as our displacement map. So I'm going to call this File, Save As, and I'll call this Displacement Map 2 since we already have a displacement map. .psd. So I'm going to turn the eyeball off on that background copy layer. I'm going to go back to this layer here, this vector smart object layer. And I am going to go up to Filter, Distort, Displace. And I know with this one, we're gonna want a little bit more distortion. So I'm gonna start off with a 20 and 20. And I'm gonna click OK, and I'm gonna see what happens. Alrighty, so we got some warping happening, good. And now let's see what blending mode is going to be good for us. So with this one, I feel like hard light might be a good place to start. But the problem with hard light is that the black looks so very dark. So I'm going to lower the opacity. And what I'll do is I'll mask this, and just lowering the opacity might have been the trick, but after I mask this, I can then duplicate it and I can see what it would look like if I had one version of the flag on the color adjustment layer or blending mode, and then one version of the flag on hard light, or maybe one on desaturate. So, it might kind of blend nicely. We want to get something that looks like it's painted on her face, but also something that's not flat, right? So now we are getting into that wonderful tool that we learned in week 3 of DES104, which is masking. And masking is really fun because you can cut things out. So there's a lot of different ways that we can mask. I think to get an overall mask of her face, I might use the pen tool to make a nice selection because, her chin is smooth, her head shape is smooth. So using the pen tool to draw a path and then make a selection might be the right way to go. So I'll start here, and I'm just going to kind of click, and with my pen on the path mode, pull out these Bezier curves. And I'm not going to get it perfect around her hair, but I'm going to try as best as I can. And then, but the thing is, once we get a good selection first, and then we fix it later. Okay, so I made kind of a basic path around her face. And now I'm going to click the Make Selection button up at the top of the screen to make a selection. So her face is selected, and what I want to do now is invert the selection so I can paint and erase everything that's outside of this selection. So I'm going to hit, this is a really important shortcut key that you guys want to write down, Shift Command I. Shift Command I, and what that does is it inverts our selection, and now we're basically selecting everything except for her face. We're selecting everything except for her face. And this is just one way to make a selection. For this project, you know, if you want to paint your selection, that's fine too. If you want to use the quick selection tool, that's fine too. However you decide to make your selection, as long as the end result is good, that is what's important. Now I'm going to get my paint bucket tool out, and I am going to click on the Add a Layer Mask icon, which is the square with the circle inside of it. And I just remembered, I just realized I didn't have to invert it there because I already had the layer on white. So let's re-invert it by hitting Command I. So I made you guys do a little extra step. I'm sorry, we didn't have to invert the selection. But then to undo our invert, just hit Command I, and see, now we have this. So what we want to do now is refine our selection, and we want to paint away her eyes, her lips, her nostrils. We want to make the selection around her hair look a lot more natural. So I'm going to get my paintbrush out. I'm going to slightly soften the edge of my paintbrush. I'm going to make sure that pure black and pure white are on my foreground and background colors. And I can do that by hitting the letter D on my keyboard, which changes my colors to pure black and pure white. Right, and every time I paint with black, I'm erasing. And every time I paint with white, I'm bringing that back. Right, so every time I paint with black, I'm erasing like that. Okay, so the things that we want to erase, we want to be a little bit refined about this, is her nostrils. But we don't want to make like hard holes in her nose, you know. We want it to blend. So of course it'll be really dark up here, but then we want to lower the opacity and maybe use a softer edge brush. And so I'm using a low opacity, 20%. And so I'm creating kind of a nice blend here. So now I'm upping my opacity to 90% in the corner of her nose. And then I'm lowering my opacity down to 20% as I'm painting out. So it's kind of like we're blending. We're not making a hard hole in her flag for the nose. It's blended. And a little bit of white there, and a little bit of low opacity. And remember, the shortcut key to change your opacity on the fly, it's just the numbers, right? So for her eye, I want to increase my opacity up to 100. And I want to cut a hole here. So I'm painting with black. But now I want it to blend. You know, I'm not going to be able to paint every single eyelash. So I want it to blend. So I'm lowering my opacity back down to 20. Making my brush a little wide, and then low opacity. Kind of, it's almost like I'm adding a little bit of eyeshadow as I'm cutting a hole in this flag. And I'm just low opacity dusting Crossed her eyelashes. Trying to make this blend look nice and natural. So see, I'm on 10% opacity with a nice big brush. And I'm just going over and over and over again. So there's a little bit. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the other eye with my paintbrush. Remember, always make sure you have your layer mask selected. Make sure you have that black and white shape selected. I'm increasing my opacity to 100 again, right? Because I want it to be nice and bold, you know, here in her eye. And then I want it to blend outside of her eye. So I'm changing my opacity back down to 20 by hitting 2 on my keyboard. Now with a big brush, painting, painting, painting. Okay, so looking pretty natural. Now we have to get her eyebrows. Oops. Oh, I accidentally hit Command Delete. Command Delete accidentally filled in my mask. Don't do that. Don't play fast and loose with your shortcut keys. Yeah, Lily, you're welcome to come to my session on Thursday, which is at 5 p.m. Your time. Okay, so now I'm going to here, and again, I'm gonna redo that because I noticed it was just too dark. 100% opacity was too much. So I'm going to do 50% opacity at first. Yeah, so all of my class sessions and multi-sessions are at the same time. And so I have another session on Thursday for my DES 104 students, but you guys are welcome to come in to that as well. And if you want, I'd be happy to spend a little bit more time going over masking and the different masking techniques. If we have time in this class today, and also during tomorrow's class session. Okay, so now I just have to do her lips. So I'm gonna increase my opacity up to 100%. And I'm just erasing, erasing, erasing with a soft edge brush. And if it's with a soft edge brush, you can blend it and it looks really good. But if you use a hard edge brush, it's gonna look bad. Okay, good. And just a reminder, this is what the final mask will look like. See how I've painted, I've cut holes in her eyes and with her nostrils and with her lips and eyebrows. But notice I didn't use pure black for the eyebrows because I wanted it to blend. And I didn't use pure black for her nostrils or around her eyes because I wanted that to blend as well. So reducing the opacity on your brush as you're blending will help it to look more realistic. Okay, and so what I have this flag on is hard light, but I lowered the opacity. Let's see what some other options might look like. The one thing I can do is put this on saturation, which saturation will make the black become gray, desaturated. And now I can Command J and duplicate that, and then put the top layer, the duplicated layer, on color. But the problem there is it really, really changed the quality of the color, which I'm not thrilled with. So we can also try, again, going to hard light, and then lowering the opacity. And that way it keeps the black nice and black, but it kind of makes the yellow a little bit orange because of the saturation showing through. So I think I kind of like hard light with a low opacity so far the best. Another thing we can do is vivid light. But vivid light is just a little bit too high contrast. Let's see what happens if we lower the opacity. Yeah, vivid light's too much. Linear light is nice, but it will only look good, I think, if we reduce the opacity a lot. Pin light, no. So I'm liking hard light the best by itself. I think it just needs a little bit of refinement around the hair here. So with a soft edge brush, I'm just gonna erase, erase, erase. And then I think it will look good when I put this shadow layer on it. So with the blurry black and white, I'm gonna put this on soft light. And so what this does is it adds that shading in there. So before, everything is looking really flat. After, see how it adds the shading? I think that's nice. And it's also kind of nice because it just gives the skin and everything a little bit of a glowy quality. You can also, if you want something a little bit more extreme, you can put it on overlay. But I would say, because it's so glowy, I would say lower the opacity a little bit. Let's see what hard light looks like. Hard light's kind of nice too. And you could also be like, you know, if you don't want the skin to look so metallic, so before, after. See how hard light really makes the skin look glossy and shiny? Marla just asked, is that why you added the desaturated copy? No. The reason for the desaturated copy was to make the displacement map, because the flag would not look like it's bending around her face if we didn't have the displacement map. I'm just using since I already had it there, I'm just using it to see what it might look like if I had the shading on it. So another thing that we can do is, if you don't want things to look so glowy and so soft, which I actually kind of like, I think it looks really cool, you can always Command J, and without blurring the background layer, you can just desaturate it. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Desaturate. And I think I need to bump the contrast a little bit. So I'm going to hit Command L. Bump the contrast just a little bit. And now I'm going to put this on Overlay. And so this has a completely different look, right? So this is just her skin, you know, no blur, on the overlay blending mode with a little bit of contrast bumped, and it looks very gritty and it looks kind of cool. Whereas this version, it looks very soft and glowy and kind of mystical and magical, right? So we have completely different looks. And yeah, if you're kind of like thinking, okay, I like how her skin looks here. See, I like this because you can really see the texture of her skin. But yeah, her hair looks very flat. You can always get out your layer mask and you can always, you know, with a low opacity brush, mask and kind of bring back the details in the hair. Okay, before, and you can also use both of them. Both looks cool too. Alrighty, so now what we have to do is save this the correct way. So I'm gonna go to Safari, and it's asking for a JPEG of your displacement map and a JPEG of your file. So we're always gonna save the native file. Oh, I forgot to change this name. So I'm gonna go to File, Save As. Bill, please only use the 4 provided. Oh yeah, she's one of the examples. So if you go here, she's number 2 right there. So we're gonna call this DES460 Week 1 assessment. Your name. Oh, Marla, did I not choose a handsome guy? Let me see. I feel like I wouldn't be that sexist. Oh no, you guys got the handsome Native American guy with the long hair. He's not like pixie cute, but he's like, oh, he's kind of pixie cute. I think if you guys don't think he's cute, you're wrong. He's cute. He's more muscly cute instead of like cute pixie cute. I like pixie cute guys. That's my, like, little Peter Pan types. but but he's more muscly cute. Okay, so now I am going to, so I have that saved as a PSD. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. And I'm going to go to, I think JPEG maximum is going to give us a really large file. So I'm going to go to high. JPEG high is good. And then I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to go to, so there is our JPEG that we're going to be turning in for grading. And then you're going to hit enter or return, and ta-da! Now what we have to do is save the displacement map as a JPEG, and that's one thing I didn't do. So I'm just going to make it easy on myself and disable layer mask and turn off the overlay. I'm going to go normal. Oh, no, here it is. This is our displacement map. And so I'm going to save this as a JPEG so that it's ready to turn in. So I'm going to go to File. Oh, and I don't need to have this on hard light. I'm going to put this on normal. And so now I'm going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. And you have to make sure that you name this displacement map, or else you overwrite your other file, which would make you sad. So now I'm going to go to Save. And week 1 assessment, your name. And I forgot it if it just asks you to put displacement map at the end. Underscore. There we go. I'm going to hit enter or return. Oh, Alvin is asking, after the image adjustment and after you go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, do you have to rasterize it? You actually have to rasterize it before you do the adjustment, because if you didn't rasterize it, it will not let you do the black and white adjustment or the Gaussian blur. But here's the thing, because I just opened this image, like I went File, Open, so File, Open, where is he? It's going to come in already as a rasterized layer, right? So see, when I went File, Open, it comes in as the background layer, and there's no need to rasterize it because it's already rasterized. If, however, you were to go File, Place Embedded, and then place this image into your document, enter, return, then it comes in as a smart object that will need to be rasterized. So that's kind of why you needed to rasterize your assignment, but you don't necessarily need to rasterize your assessment, because we're opening them and bringing them into our Photoshop in different ways. Cool, cool, cool. Any questions? I thought what I would do is talk about the different ways that we can make selections and masks and what can be done with them, since we have a few minutes left. So some important things for your assignment, you want to make sure that you use the right size, 7 inches by 10 inches, 72 TPI. And you want to make sure on the assessment that you really do a good job of cutting out the hair and the eyes, because if you don't cut those out, or if you make them look like, you know, they've just been cut out with scissors and not like blended, it will look bad. For the assignment, can you rotate the canvas? Sure. Yeah, let me see. It doesn't really specify what size it wants it to be, right? So you are more than welcome to rotate it or crop it as you want. Okay, cool. So let's go over the different ways that we can make masks in Photoshop. So I'm going to bring in a simple object. I'm going to go File, Place Embedded. And then I'm going to hit Enter or Return. And the easiest way, of course, to make a selection and a mask would be to use your marquee tools. So those are the most basic masking tools. Your elliptical marquee, right? You click on it, you hold down the Shift button, click and drag. And then after you've made your selection with the marquee tool, you click on the square with the circle inside of it. Ta-da! So that's like the most basic mask. And then you can feather the edges. You can continue to manipulate it if you want by using the Masks Properties window, which is found by double-clicking on your layer mask thumbnail and then clicking on Feather. And now we're blending, like so. Now, oh gosh, someone earlier at the beginning of class was asking about the Refine Edge tool in CC 2017. Who was that? Can someone remind me? Because I'd be happy to help you find that now.
When you went to the feather, what did you go to the feather at?
Okay. Oh, to get that, hold on, let me share my screen again. So to get to the feathering, you double click on the black and white shape that has appeared next to your layer after you apply the layer mask. So let me do that again. So let's say you use a selection tool such as your elliptical marquee tool, click and drag to make that elliptical marquee tool. Then you click on the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel to apply the selection to the layer mask. And then to get the feathering, you double click on the black and white layer mask that has appeared next to your layer. And then you move this little slider here, and that is where your feathering is. Cool. And Alvin, do you want to share your screen and so we can figure out the Refine Edge dialog box? Okay, cool. So really quick, Alvin, just go ahead and share your screen. And actually, I am going to make you a co-host so you can do that. And then just hit the share screen button. Perfect. Okay, and let's put something on here that we can mask. So yeah, just go to File, Place Embedded, and place something on here. And you might want to hit Enter or Return just to apply your transformation.
It won't do it. I've been trying to do it. It won't do it.
Wait, so you're hitting Enter or Return on your keyboard?
Yes, ma'am.
And okay, let's do this. Now go up to the top of Photoshop and go to File, Place Embedded. It looks like you're still in Zoom. So click anywhere you want on your artboard. Good. Okay, and now what you're going to do is hit Enter or Return.
Still don't do it.
Okay, it might be because you've put everything on an artboard instead of a new project. Let's go up to layer 1. Just click on
Layer one,
layer
okay,
1
layer
in
one.
layer panel right there. Good. And now go to File, Place Embedded. And now bring some sort of picture in there. Pick anything you want. Bring that guy. Bring. Okay, good. Now hit Enter or Return. And just use your marquee tool to make a selection in the middle of it. And okay, good, perfect. And now what you're gonna do is click on the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. No, the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. And now double click on the black and white layer mask that popped up. Good. And now, okay, so cool. You have a lot of the refine edge features that you would use in Photoshop CC 2015 are actually already in this menu. So I think they've done away with the refine they've done away with the fact that you have to go to a separate menu to do many of these things. Okay. It's all right here. So for instance, edge detection, which is the main reason why we go to the refine edge dialog box. It's right there at the top. So all you have to do is click on that little sideways arrow and then click on smart radius and then click on, So edge detection is great when you have a model who has, like, let's say really, really curly hair, right? And she's against a white background or something. And you want to be able to cut out each individual strand of curly hair, but you don't want to spend a million years doing it. Edge detection will help to determine the kind of shape of her curly hair versus like the smoothness of her skin. So it will like automatically help find those edges, but not necessarily useful for this particular illustration that you have. But that's basically why we would use the refine edge dialog box. And it's all, the shift edge is there, contrast is there. So that's where you can kind of adjust the edges of your selection and your mask.
Okay, so it doesn't have a refine edge.
Yeah, it doesn't, but all the tools that are in the refine edge are here in this menu instead.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yep, and then you can just hit OK when you're done. So it looks like you got it.
Awesome.
Cool. I'm going to take over. And so you guys were asking about how you paint inside your mask. Okay. Okay, so let's say I wanted to just paint to erase the outside of this flower. What I would do is just click on the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel first. Then I'd go to my brush tool and I'd select the color black. And I've double checked to make sure that my layer mask is selected, and that's this white square that has appeared. And see now, every time I paint with black on my layer mask, I'm erasing this picture. And every time I paint with white, it comes back. Okay, so this is how you paint directly on your layer mask. And then, when you're doing something delicate, like you're putting something on someone's face, you want to blend, right? You want to, just like you're doing your makeup, you don't want to like start slathering on, ink or whatever over your eyes. You want to like dust the powder on very gently. So that's a case where you would, you know, lower your opacity. I'm hitting my opacity at 20 now. And now paint, and see, now you can kind of paint very, very delicately. And instead of painting at 100%, you paint at 20%. You can kind of blend that way. Let's see. Directly painting on a layer mask is great. You know, I'm typing 00 on my keyboard to paint with 100%. So this is me painting the picture back. Right? And then when I want to erase the picture, I hit X, and every time I paint with black, I'm erasing. Now, Control click, delete layer mask. There's more tools than that, though. Of course, the lasso tool allows you to make a selection, but it's only going to be as steady as your finger is steady. So this is my finger on my trackpad attempting to make a selection with the lasso tool. But because I don't have a Cintiq right now, or Wacom Intuos, yikes, it's looking very, very jagged. And then when I make my mask, it's going to look like this. Not very pretty. The polygon lasso tool is great for objects that have straight edges only. So not quite appropriate for this flower, but if this flower was like a very geometrically shaped flower, we could use the polygon lasso tool to make a selection. Like so, and then go down to the bottom of the layer panel and click on the square with the circle inside of it, and ta-da! Now we can get a little bit more refined by using the quick selection tool, which helps you paint in areas, and it tends to stick to pixels of certain colors. So here I am painting in my selection. And now if you want to, if you accidentally go too far, let's say I accidentally go like that, oh no, I selected too much. I can go to the little brush with the minus sign next to it up at the top of the screen. And I can erase this selection. And now once I have completely got this flower looking the way I want it, then I can click on the square with the circle inside of it. Now, as you can see, the issue with the quick selection tool is you can see how kind of jagged and pixelated these edges are, right? Not very pretty, but you can use the refined edge tools to smoothen this out a little bit. And so, like I said, in 2015, it's a little bit different. You can, in 2015, you double click on the black and white layer mask. And then I have to go to mask edge in order to get my refinements. But for you guys, it's a lot easier. You just double click on the layer mask, and then all of the tools that you can use to smoothen this out are already there. So I'm going to go to Mask Edge, and these are the tools that you guys have. So Contrast and Smooth and Shift Edge will help smoothen this out. Now I'm going to click OK. And see, now it's not quite so jagged. Still needs a little bit of cleanup, which is easy enough to do with my brush tool. I can just now increase my hardness. Paint, 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 paint. Alrighty, so that is the quick selection. I probably have overwhelmed you. I still need to talk about the pen tool, and I need to talk about the color range selector and the quick mask, which is another way to make selections. But I realize I've been talking at you guys for almost 2 hours, and I'm sure your brains are probably fried. So if you want, I can leave those topics for tomorrow and answer any questions if you guys have any. And if not, you're free to go, or if you have any additional requests, I'd be happy to accommodate them and teach you. I just realized I'm getting to the point where I'm like talking and I'm like, they're probably really, really tired right now. Yes, so tomorrow, 5 p.m. Mountain Time is the second class session.
I have a question.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was trying to do a flower, and I know I'm using the quick tool, but when I get down to the smaller part, it's
oh, you need to make it even smaller?
Well, I'll probably have to show you. Can I show you? Can I share?
Yeah, go ahead and share your screen.
This right here. Is there some way I can make it darker or I can see it much better?
Well, it looks like you have a very low resolution image, and so it's gonna be
okay.
It's gonna be hard, but yeah, you can definitely make that image a lot darker by going to up at the top of the screen, clicking Edit. Sorry, Image. Adjustments. And then you can click on Levels.
Oh, levels.
And then, keep in mind you have a selection. So whatever you do on these levels, it's only going to apply to your selection. I would recommend deselecting before doing this. So hit Command D to deselect.
Okay, Command D.
And that, yeah, go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels. And now you can drag your gray slider a little bit towards your white slider.
Oh, cool.
And then when you're done, just hit OK. And then you can use your selection. And I would recommend, because this is so detailed, what you can do is hit Command +sign and zoom in really, really close, and use your quick selection to select the bigger areas, and then get really, really close and make your brush really, really small for the smaller areas.
Oh, see what's happening?
Yep. So now you're getting to the point where you're overwriting
Yeah.
your selection. So
Yeah.
what you want to do is go back the other way. So you don't want to paint into a selection that you've already made.
Okay.
And then if you go too far, like you've selected too much, you can go up to the brush at the top of the screen and click on the brush with the minus sign next to it.
Oh, so that will, okay.
And then you can erase your selection.
Wow. That's a shame. I should know this. That's a shame.
Oh, no problem. We went over it in, I believe, week 3 of DES104. So that was a while ago, Definitely refer to your notes from DES104, but I'm happy to help you if you need a refresher on anything.
I got about 6. I got about 6 notebooks that are filled.
Perfect.
It'll take me a while to look for that stuff.
Perfect. Anything else I can help you with?
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was overwhelmed with the massive examples that you have shared, and I'm going to go find that movie. I hope it's in YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool. Well, you guys have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.
I won't be here tomorrow. I happen to have a day off today.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, and let me just say, I know you got to go, but let me say this. My schedule basically is I work Monday through Friday, and some Thursdays I work, but mostly I do all my schoolwork on Fridays and Saturdays. And I've been having it hard lately because of the advanced classes. When I go into this tutoring session, nobody's there to really help me.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's the problem. A lot of the tutors don't know, like, the 400 level classes.
Yes.
So really, you're best off getting help from your teachers. And so if something happens like Friday or Saturday, when you do your work, shoot me an email, tell me what you're having trouble with. If all else fails, I'll just give you an extension till Monday, and you and I can meet in my class. Oh, you know what? I just figured out I have office hours, this mod on Saturday. So you can also come to my office hours Saturday morning if you need help.
All right. What time is that Eastern time?
I have to math that. So it's 8 o'clock in the morning.
So it'll be 10 o'clock to me.
Wait, let me calculate this. So 8 o'clock in the morning Mountain Time, which is 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time.
Okay.
Yeah, so 11 Eastern Time, and it's for 4 hours. So 11 to 3 Eastern Time on Saturday. You can come by.
I would definitely see you. Thank you so much.
And it's in the same classroom. So just use the same link, and I'll be here.
And Zoom here?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem. Have a good evening, everyone.
You too.